This will be our day 1.6 video for geometry, and it will be covering what we call the midpoint formula. Previously, you learned what a midpoint is, but when we are now working with what we call coordinate geometry, and that is putting geometric concepts on a coordinate plane with x and y axes, we have a formula we can use for distance, like you learned about last time. And we also have a formula that we use for midpoint. All right? And so we're going to start by looking at what that midpoint is. Anytime we have a segment where there are 2 points for endpoints called x1, y1, and x2, y2, the midpoint formula is this. We are going to take the average of the x-coordinates, meaning we take x1 and we add x2. Then we divide that by 2. That becomes our new x-coordinate. And then we take the average of the y-coordinates, y1 plus y2, and we divide that by 2. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you guys can see what that says. Okay, make sure you have that written down for your formula. And so now we're just going to apply that formula to some problems. So first we're going to find the midpoint of segment GH if they tell you that that endpoint G is at 7, -5, and H is at 9, -1. And so I'm actually going to help color code this as I'm giving the notes. Okay, I'm going to underline the x-coordinates in green and the y-coordinates in orange. And you should be able to tell the difference there. And so our midpoint comes from, I'm sorry, I underlined the wrong ones, wrong example. Let me slide back up here. Same idea though. 7 and 9 are the x-coordinates, and -5 and -4 are the y-coordinates. Sorry about that. Our midpoint is going to be found by using this formula. We're just going to get a new midpoint, a new set of coordinates by doing x1 plus x2 all over 2, and y1 plus y1 all over 2. y1 plus y2 all over 2. So we're going to start with our x's. We're going to take 7 plus 9 over 2. Then we're going to take -5 plus -1. -5 plus -1, we're just going to change to -5 minus 1. Then we're going to simplify. 7 plus 9 is 16. But then I'll divide that by 2. And some of you are used to doing this all in one step, and that's okay. And then -5 minus 1 is -6, and that's still over 2. So we're going to simplify further and get our final answer. Okay, 16 divided by 2 is 8. And -6 divided by 2 is -3. So that is our answer. That is the midpoint of this segment GH. Okay, I would like for you to try and do example 2 on your own. This is a situation where you'll pause the video and try it on your own, and then when you are ready to check your answer, push play. That should be enough time. If you've paused the video, this is what we should get. -7 and 3 are the x-coordinates. 4 and -4 are the y-coordinates. So we have -7 plus 3 over 2, which simplifies to -2, and 4 minus 4. Okay, 4 plus -4 is like 4 minus 4, which is 0 over 2, which stays 0. So this is your midpoint. Again, don't be thrown off by the zeros. We will use that as a number more often than you realize. All right, in these next few examples, we are going to be taking a look at finding a missing endpoint. Okay, and really we're just working backwards from the formula we just had. We're going to start with one of our endpoints and the midpoint, and we're going to work backwards to find the other endpoint. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you how to use some number lines or some segments to draw this out and do this geometrically rather than plugging into a formula and using your algebra. Okay, so to work backwards, we can actually do this in a little bit more simple manner. So here's what we have to start with. We want to find the coordinates of A if M, which is our midpoint, okay, usually we will identify M as the midpoint, is -1, 2, and B has the coordinates of 3, -5. And so what we're going to do is we're going to draw two segments. Okay? We're going to treat these like number lines. Okay, first we're going to do our x's, then we're going to do our y's. Okay, we're just going to look at the coordinates. Now we're going to label these segments A, M, B, or segment AB with M as a midpoint, I'm sorry. And we're going to think of these as just representing the x values here and the y values here. So we are looking for the coordinates of A in both cases. For the x's, though, we know the midpoint coordinates for x is -1, and we know the endpoint coordinate of B for the x is 3. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at this distance or difference and then duplicate that distance on the other side of -1 if you think of this as a number line. So it doesn't always go left to right like this, but this is just a way for us to organize our work. From -1 all the way up to 3, if I was counting on a number line, that would be 4 spaces, okay? Because -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're adding 4 to go this direction. So to find the missing coordinate, we're just going to do the exact opposite. We're going to subtract 4 from that -1. So the missing x coordinate will be -1 minus 4, which would be -5. So I know that A is going to have the coordinates of -5, comma, whatever I get for my y value here. And we're going to do the same thing for our y values. We're going to look at the known information for the y values. A is what we're looking for. The midpoint has a y value of 2. The other endpoint that's given, B, has a y value of -5. So this is actually backwards from what we would think of it, but we can imagine what we would be doing here. Okay, we want to look at the distance between these, how they would occur on a number line. To go from 2 all the way down to -5, if I'm counting backwards, it would be 1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So that's a total of subtracting 7 to go this way. To go from 2 back to -5, I would subtract 7. So, to find my missing y value, I'm going to do the exact opposite, and I'm going to add 7 to 2. So our missing y value is the midpoint coordinate 2 plus 7, which is 9. So A has to have the coordinates -5, 9. All you're doing is kind of using your basic understanding of midpoint. You remember we did the warm-up in class the other day of the room numbers? That's the same idea. But now we're starting with a midpoint, and we're duplicating that difference to find the other endpoint coordinates. Okay. I want you to try number 4 on your own, and again, pause the video, and when you are ready, click play to see what the answer should be. Again, that should be enough time. Here's what you should have. Okay, the coordinates of J you should have gotten would be -2, 14. Okay, because what you're answering is this question. If -5 is in the middle of -8 and something else, what is that something else? Or you're answering the question, what is -5 in the middle of -8? That's a weird way of saying it. Okay, but you're looking for that other number. The -5 could be between that and -8. Okay, and so we kind of use our reverse process here for that. Same thing for this one. 10 is between, or right in the middle of 6 and what other number? That would be 14. Okay. I want you to try number 5 on your own. It's the same kind of deal. I want you to try it on your own and then have that answered and ready to talk about in class. Okay? You're going to take a look at this one in class, but I want you to have this answered before you come to class. Try it on your own. If you're really stuck, come see me in Act Lab. Again, this is our formula for midpoint for the first few problems. Make sure you have this written down and understand it. Because that is our midpoint formula.